I ran the Die Hard franchise, Wolverine franchise, worked on Transformers 1 and 2, Star Trek.
Guest I have on today has worked on my favorite holiday movie. My wife would say different. She doesn't think it's a holiday movie, but I don't want to spoil your background,
Independence
Steven.
Day, July 4th.
Yeah, that's the one with Will Smith. It's a good one.
No, you're thinking of a Christmas movie.
It was Christmas. That's right. A holiday movie, Christmas movie. But I'm going to let you kind of talk about your background, ask some questions. This is a really exciting episode, and I think it's going to be really relatable. Give us, the audience, your background, why you, in the event that somebody doesn't happen to know you. So if this is like your first time listening to you, if that's fair.
Absolutely. For those playing at home or listening in their car, my name is Steven Puri, and the thing you may find interesting is this, is I've been a senior executive at a couple motion picture studios. I ran the Die Hard franchise, Wolverine franchise, worked on Transformers 1 and 2, Star Trek, Independence Day, and the visual effects capacity, a lot of stuff. And I've also worked in tech. I raised about $21 million of venture across 3 companies, 1 successful exit, 2 failures. What I do now is I take the lessons that I've seen for very high performers and high performing teams in both disciplines and share those lessons on what do people do when they are great leaders or great ICs to be high performers in a healthy way. Not the I slept on my desk until 4 a.m. for months and I lost my wife, my husband, my kids don't know me, but rather the wow, you seem to have it wired, or you seem to be an inspiring leader who creates conditions for great productivity. How do you do it? That's not what I do now.
The one thing that stood out that I think is really relevant is that you also teach teams was how to really leverage remote to be productive. Demystify why remote really does work and what you see in the real world, since you're an expert on this and your background speaks to that.
You teed up a really great question. My answer will have 2 parts. The first part you alluded to, which is for many verticals, there was a shock to the system with the pandemic. Oh, we can't be in the same room under the same fluorescent lights. We will kill each other. Zoom became a verb. Not a lot of people had been trained. Well, how's this going to work? Now, here's the funny thing that many people don't know, because very few people have worked running movies, is every movie for 100 plus years has remote, hybrid, and in-person stages. When writers begin writing, it is a remote work. It is, you're in your home, you're in your writing partner's living room, you're in coffee shops. Eventually becomes hybrid, where maybe one of your scripts gets some traction, a little bit of money comes in, you open a production office, 2 days a week, you're in the production office with costumers. What do they wear in this thing? Location scouts. What does it look like where they are? The other 3 days a week, everyone sort of disperses and does their work out in the world, finds costumes, rewrites the script for Brad Pitt instead of Chris Hemsworth. Eventually you're on set. It is RTO. It is 120 hours a week together for months on end working. And then it goes back to hybrid with picture editors, sound editors, Foley artists, and then it goes back to remote. Now, the reason I bring this up is because for 100 years film has done that, there are established practices to be a great leader in each of those stages and to be an individual contributor. That was not true in many other areas. But now, as you said, many businesses have discovered, oh, there are wonderful advantages to remote and some challenges. We're just inventing electricity. How does it work? And there are guys down the street who run a power plant and power their house and their lights with it. Let's go find the guys down the street. How does this work? Amy Diamond, who's a fantastic leader, but has been a vanguard in terms of everyone needs to be in the office all the time. I need to be able to see them. Their whole the spans and layers need to be all assembled right here. I want to speak specifically to that, which is having been part of remote hybrid. I run a remote company now. I've run 3. There are huge advantages. When I realized I could hire global talent, there's an amazing designer in Dubai who could move my company forward. I can do that. There's a great software engineer in Montreal. I can do that, which is very different than if you don't live near me in SF, which there is a great talent pool for engineering in SF, or a great writer in Hollywood. We can't work together. No, this is fantastic. Those things of how do you allow people who maybe have decisions in their life of, I want to live this way. By the way, I am a 10x person in my field, but I'm not going to move to Pittsburgh to live near the headquarters to do this. You can't work with me, right? Or they have other constraints for their time. There are great reasons to be in the office together And there are great reasons to be remote or even hybrid. Now, I will say this. After the pandemic, the pendulum, as you alluded to, swung back toward the middle. And people were like, you'd be in the office, maybe remote, do this, that, that thing, right? Some of the pushback against remote is really a hiring problem. If you lead a team, there are many small things you do, but there are two big ones. There is, you establish a vision. We are here to make cold fusion reality. We are here to do whatever the thing is. You establish that vision. Guys, that's why we are here. That's why you're not working for Dairy Queen or ExxonMobil. Second thing is, you establish a culture, which means how do we treat each other? How do we treat our competitors? How do we treat our customers? And if you do those well, then you hire people who are aligned with that. When you have a problem where really, if I can't see Paul, I really don't know what he's doing. I want him here. I want to drop by his desk and talk to him about TPS reports. Okay. That's a hiring problem, because let me tell you, if our company is curing cancer and I've established that and we hire people who care about that, if I know Paul's dad died of cancer, I can bet that when he's at home, he's going, how do I cure this thing? He's not, where's my pickleball paddle? That's a hiring problem. I would encourage the people who are operating from fear, who leaders are operating from fear of like, I just don't know what Paul's doing, to really look deeply and go, is Paul the guy? Or should I help Paul get to an organization where he's deeply engaged? Maybe he is more a cold fusion guy than he is a cure cancer guy. I should get a cure cancer guy. I should let Paul help him get to a place where he's passionately engaged and can still work from Arizona, New York, Florida, Wyoming, wherever he wants to be. That said, I think there are two big thoughts in there. One is, you're right. During the pandemic, suddenly there's an explosion of, well, there are other ways of working. You had a way of painting, whereas you had reds and yellows. Suddenly you got a blue, and you could start painting lakes and blue skies. That's not going away. But it doesn't mean everything needs to be a lake. There are absolutely collaboration things that I've done in real life that are far superior to any video conferencing holographic thing I've ever tried. Sitting around and you and I going to the end of the second act, we know he's got the sword, the dragon's in the other cave, the girl's here. What should we do? There is nothing like that vibe in the room when you and I look at each other, we walk around, we draw on the whiteboard, we throw in a movie like, oh, what do they do in, Dragon's Quest or whatever, or Dungeons and Dragons? There's nothing like that over a video conference I've ever experienced. I'm sure, Mark, who's trying to sell his glasses, is, no, it's VR. I poured $100 billion into doing this in AR, VR. There is stuff with remote, fantastic. And you're going to get a different talent pool. So I think there's that. And that's what I believe passionately. That's what I talk a lot about, is what are the tools you can then give your team to allow them to be super productive and healthy and retain them.
I like how you talked about the history and your frame of movies. And movies and obviously entertainment's always polarizing because everybody gets value from entertainment. Here's what I want to try to scratch an itch on.
I live in Texas. I have a really itchy mosquito bite that I keep reaching down to scratch. I feel you. Go.
Sorry, I live in Ohio. Not as many mosquitoes, I think. I don't know.
No, but clearly more cowboy hats in Ohio than in my house.
Which is weird. I thought you would have one in Texas.
Oh,
that's a different conversation.
So many. Can I tell you, when we moved here, she embraced it.
Have you known the backstory of how I even got into buying a cowboy hat?
I don't know the story of your cowboy. What?
I'll tell you real quick, and then we'll get back into the content just because I like you. So I was in Dallas, Texas, speaking and training, and I went on this hiatus of binge watching Yellowstone. Wow. And this is so dumb. There's a store in Dallas called Wild Bill's. I'm gonna do the accent as best as I can.
Please
Don't hold it against me.
Ready.
This is called Wild Bill's, and never wore a cowboy hat. It was like super self-conscious. And went into Wild Bill's, and the lady was super friendly. Sugar, what are you here for? And all I said was, I just binge watched Yellowstone. She goes, all right, the perfect person for you. She knew what was going on. She knew I was a tourist. She got it. And this guy came out with the spurs and everything. And I don't know if Wild Bill's is still around, but if you are, go to Wild Bill's, an amazing store. They do not pay me to say that. And the guy, now, have you seen Yellowstone? Have you ever seen Yellowstone? Usually cowboy stuff.
My good friend is the publicist for Taylor Sheridan. I should have watched this, but I'm so busy. I haven't taken the time. I don't watch a lot of TV anymore.
I tell the guy, and in the show, I won't spoil anything because you've seen this other cowboy films. When they throw their hat on the bed, they always freak out. Bad luck. The guy's showing me the hats, and I go, Hey, I've always seen this in Yellowstone where they throw their hat on their bed. I've never wore a hat like this. Is there rules to this? And his eyes got real big and he goes, rule number one, the only person that can wear your cowboy hat is you. If somebody wants to wear your cowboy hat, you say, no, thank you. And you tell them, keep walking. Rule number two, he goes, the only person that can wear your cowboy hat is your cowgirl for life. I go, well, I got kids. What about them? And he goes, tell them to get their own hats. I buy it and I'm super self-conscious because you never know what people are going to think. Republican, Democrat, Republican, Democrat.
Yep.
This whole thing are going through my head. I go to put it in my suitcase and he hits my hand and he goes, the ultimate rule, don't you ever apologize for being a cowboy. You wear that hat loud and proud and let everybody know through TSA you're a cowboy. You understand me, Paul? And he always said, you understand me? Go through TSA. They actually hold my cowboy hat with blue gloves as I go through security. And I asked the guy, why did you do that? And he goes, because nobody wears your cowboy hat but you here in Dallas, Texas.
Wow. That's
So
really great.
it was a surreal experience. I was like, well, and then at the time I was living in Michigan, nobody cared. But
Yeah.
but in Dallas, it was a surreal experience.
To draw this back to, business stuff, culture is important. Like he was like, this is how our culture works. If you want to be part of it, this is what you do. And that's what a leader does. This is how we operate here. When I was at News Corp, everybody followed the style, whether they knew it or not, of how Rupert operated. His morals, whatever you think of them, his ethics, whatever you think of them, but it infused the entire organization, as opposed to like DreamWorks, where I was right before Fox. DreamWorks is a very ethical organization. Steven ran that and he's like, let's try and make great movies. It's hard. We will make some bad ones, but let's not try and make cheap movies. Let's do something we're proud of. The leader says, here's the culture here.
I think one of the challenges or fears, false evidence apparent real, you had touched on that, is I think sometimes people have this. I'll give you an example. So when in the pandemic, we all had to go remote. At the company I was with at the time, there was this fear that people weren't working. And I think sometimes those are valid fears. And since you have had remote, since the movie industry has been doing this for a long time, talk to me about why those fears are not real, number one. Maybe there's an example of something where it did be that way, but you were able to. They are real, but how do you find solutions for people who may have seen those experiences, how to bounce back from them? The responsibility of the owner, and then we'll talk about from the responsibility of the employee if they're remote, and why. Let's talk about it from that frame. Responsibility of the owner, and then we'll go into the responsibility of the employee if it's a remote relationship.
So let
me
build on what I was saying before, which is foundationally, if you as a leader have been clear about the mission of your organization, it might be to make the best social media posts for our clients. It's incumbent upon you to hire people aligned with that. If it is the best social media posts, then you should be finding people. The highest, best use of AI is to make viral TikTok videos, or some guy or girl who's, I just live for making reels. Whatever that thing is, but you got to find that. And if you don't hire well, ain't no fixing it. Assuming you do that, the second part, and this is where I build on that foundation, is give them the tools to do that. Because you know what? Life is filled with companies who want to steal your attention, want to steal the days of your life. Laura, my wife, and I, we both work in tech, and we have friends who used to be at Twitter or are currently at Instagram, used to be at Facebook, are at TikTok. You have enough friends talking about how the sausage is made there. It is a very interesting world we live in, where the best paycheck, if you are a great engineer, a great UI UX designer, great behavioral psychologist or economist, the best paycheck is to work for a company whose business model is to steal your life. Period. Full stop. You can get generational wealth if you can go to one of those companies. Mark, Elon, Evan, whomever will pay you incredibly well. Your grandchildren will not need to work if you can find one more second of time in app, one more second of time on site. And that is simply stealing people's lives. That is, hey man, my name is Mark. I'd like to steal your life. I'm going to sell to these advertisers. I'll keep the money. Good deal? Let's do this. And you get dancing cat videos. He gets your life. You end up that old guy on the sofa scrolling, double tapping. I could have been somebody. Yeah, I could have written a great novel. I could have made a thing. I could have started a company. Yeah, I could have done all that. And that's what you're fighting against. These are the trillion-dollar companies that can employ the smartest people to go, I want to make sure you don't do anything. When you're a leader, that is what's going on with every one of your direct reports, their direct reports, everyone in the organization has to do something to repel that, to reject that, which is really easy. Huberman did a great podcast on, the zero effort dopamine, where it's just, hey man, we live in a world where you can lie back on the sofa and get dopamine by just moving your thumb. You don't have to write a thing, create a thing, whatever. No one's got to do, oh, there's a beautiful poem. Oh, there's a great, bonsai bush you made. You don't have to do anything. You just sit there and just get dopamine delivered to your brain, right? Really hard to fight that. So I say this because if you as a leader say, hey, I have brought people to this organization who are aligned to what we do. They're passionate about this. I've hired well. I've hired slowly. I've fired quickly. I have established a culture where they support each other. They're respectful to our customers and to our competitors. Then where you go is, well, what do I do to enable them to do great things? You want to retain your best people. You want to enable them to do the best work that differentiates you, that your company wins. It is a simple truism. So what are the things that can be done? There is definitely in some verticals a hustle culture of, if you're not here at 4 a.m., grinding it out with us, sleeping under your desk, you haven't done anything, you should be fired. That may work for some people. There's some people who gravitate towards that. Maybe they had bad fathers, whatever. You just go work for Musk, do whatever. God bless. If you, however, want to lead an organization where the people from your company do great things for you, go on to found great companies, you create a culture of positivity and great high achievement. One tool you can use is flow states. Let me just set the table for a second, which is, there was a Hungarian-American psychologist, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, who said, I have a strong thesis that these people whose names we know, these high performers, get into this concentrated state. And it's very similar across athletes, artists, inventors. I want to find out what it is. I want to document it. And like Prometheus, bring fire down from the mountain and give it to everyone. At the end of that research, he wrote a book called Flow, which is where we get the term flow state. And he said, I chose this because I think it is the perfect metaphor, because you can paddle and move yourself forward by your own effort. But if you align yourself with the current of the river, your efforts are magnified and you do the things that differentiate you, your company, you change the world. How can I express what I've found these high performers do, that people whose names you know? And they use different terms. They don't call it a flow state. There's the Michael Jordan quote about, when I'm in the zone, it's me and the ball. And what he's saying is very similar to what Mihai wrote, which is, your world reduces down to this hyper-concentrated state. You're not thinking about tomorrow's lunch. You're not thinking about the laundry needs to get done. You were in that zone for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever. Mihai wrote, there's some conditions precedent that really help. And if you're aware of this as a leader, you start to understand how to create these in your organization, where people are doing the thing where they walk into the staff meeting and go, I was thinking X, and everyone goes, whoa, that changes the trajectory of our company. That's amazing. As opposed to someone walks into the staff, hey, inbox 0, I returned all my slacks. Who cares? Did that differentiate your company? No one cares. So that said, he said, it seems these high performers, they do a few things. To get into a flow state, they have to be doing something where they have skills that apply. So to use the Michael Jordan thing, it's Michael playing basketball, not painting. You have to be challenged. It's not Jordan playing against 8th graders. It's playing in the NBA. You have to believe it's meaningful. If you're providing meaningful work for people, it is much more probable that they can get into a flow state. It also requires a bit of time. And there's a bunch of research even after Mihai, and smart people have written about this. What Cal's written about deep work and shallow work and how your brain works with that. And Nir Eyal has written about like internal, external triggers. There's really amazing stuff. Flow states don't happen in 3 minutes. You don't just go like, hey, Paul, I'm going to drop into a flow state. I'll see you in 10 for the meeting. Flow states at a minimum take 15 to 23 minutes to fall in. When you're in, you do lose track of time. My first experience, I had never heard the term flow state. I was flying here from Austin to San Francisco to meet with my team, and I wanted to go into Figma on the flight and illustrate this idea. We took off from Austin. We landed like 10 minutes later. The plane, the engine fell off. They're not telling us what's wrong. We probably landed in Dallas. Actually looked at the clock. 2 hours and 40 minutes had gone by since I'd looked at it before. I had no concept. I don't know if the drink cart went by, but my designs were done. And I was really feeling good about it. Oh, I can actually go to dinner instead of running to the hotel to try and finish the designs for tomorrow's meeting. So that was really interesting to me to be like, how did this thing work where I feel really good, work's done, I think it's good work. And then as a leader, how do you make that available? So the reason I say I relate this story is if you as a leader are booking meetings every hour on the hour or every 2 hours or something, and you're slacking people in between, you're assuring that people are not going to be in flow. They're not going to do deep work. You don't get into it for 15 minutes and get out. However, I've seen some smart organizations and specifically smart teams where the leader says, you know what? I want everyone to have that opportunity. So why don't we all agree between the 10 of us, 20 of us, whatever's on the team, between this hour and this hour, 9 to 11 in the morning, 2 to 4 in the afternoon, whatever it is, focus time, just sacred. Don't book meetings with me. I won't book meetings with you. Don't book meetings with each other. Don't slack each other. Da, da, da. And again, if you've hired well and people are engaged, they're going to be like, this is awesome. I have 2 hours where I can think and actually move that design forward or figure out that ad campaign or whatever, as opposed to just, oh, hey, Paul, I saw your Slack. Here's that report you were looking for in the G drive. I'm sorry it was so hard to find. Or let me hit you up in team. None of that actually makes your organization win. That I think is super important that you as a leader say, if I want to enable my team to do the work that not only moves the company forward, but makes them proud, because that's how you retain someone. If someone's going, I'm doing the work that defines who I am, this is my aspirational self being realized here, they're going to stay. When they feel they're being wasted or they're working on something meaningless, they're going to churn. They're going to be open to someone singing a song of, how about $15,000 more over here? Okay, sure. I don't care. No skin off my back. So that's an important concept I want to share, which is if you do some research in this as the leader and you do have a team that needs to do deep work, make those conditions precedent available. Starts with you, they follow.
You had talked about culture, number one. Two, when you are actually a micromanager, I invite you, Steven, to correct me and coach me if I'm missing anything, because I'm open to feedback. I just want to get better. Number two, allow people to get into flow state. In actuality, in your experience, when you break that flow state, interrupting every 2 hours, you're actually diluting productivity, and the consequences being procrastination. Those are some key things I'm interpreting. Am I with you so far? Or did I miss anything? One of the professors I had was Rick Baumel, who wrote Listening Pays. People get mad at this professor, and I'll explain what he did. He would be in the class. He would have one of the things you hit, it makes a noise like a ding.
Like a chime?
A chime, that's what it was. And people got irritated. One student actually stole it, and the theory was he was so mad about it. It's such a dumb, petty thing to do. Personally, it still amazes me to this day how hard it is for people managers just to trust people. And I even hate saying something this common because no duh, but common sense is not common. I'm going to play a little devil's advocate though. That's fair.
Okay, ready.
Okay. How do you spot somebody to come into, let's say you are a leader. You have defined culture. People have egos. Let's be real. Dude, I already have the culture down. I'm so amazing. Everything's awesome. Let's just say we have that person. How do you spot someone in an interview sense? What are some things you've heard that made you go, this is a great candidate?
I'll share with you my thoughts. This is not expert opinion. This is, you're asking Steven. I've run a few companies, had an exit. It's true, hiring's hard because it is a kabuki theater. I know what questions I'm supposed to ask. You know what questions you're supposed to answer this way. That dance. What's the best thing? What's the hardest challenge you've ever had? You know, what's all that stuff. Once you get past that, which is people who are going to deceive you are going to be very well practiced with the right answers that you want to hear. What's your biggest flaw? I do think that if you look at patterns, people have a hard time changing. So as much as someone may be a great interviewer and like know how to hit it out of the park, when you see someone's been jumping jobs a lot, it means they probably interview well and they either don't know what the job is they're getting and they want to get out, or they're no good at it. Let me look at your history and verify it, which a lot of people don't. Most recently, remember that there was a guy who was like holding down multiple jobs at once and was tricking all these employers. And, you know, if they'd actually done a little more DD on him, would they have hired him? No, but he apparently interviewed very well. He's a very charming guy and smart. Pathological liar. I think there is that thing of look for patterns in people. You've had 6 jobs in 5 years. Why wouldn't anyone want to retain you? Why didn't you hit such a home run in those jobs that even if you wanted to leave, they were like, what could we do to keep you? Or how do you pick jobs? You're going to be here in a year, right? That's a really big one. Not big on answering the questions in the interview, as you know, because I think very good liars are great at that. And sometimes great people are not good at interviewing because they're just incredibly sincere and awkward. But I will say this, something I have done, especially with design and engineering, is date before you marry. Listen, for these reasons, this seems like a good thing. You've met my engineering lead who digs you, and you've met, so-and-so, my partner, and we all dig you. We know that this is a long-term commitment. What if we did this for a week or a couple weeks together? Get you into the code base, get you into Figma, whatever it is, work alongside us, and let's get the feel for what that's like. And I'll tell you, there was one hire in a previous company, very experienced designer, really great work historically, a lot of great signals. And we made a mistake. We hired him and then had to figure out how to get out of it. And what we realized was he had developed a cannabis addiction. And when we actually worked together, because we didn't date, this is before I developed this, we realized he's just not the guy who shows up to meetings on time, who makes deadlines, always has an excuse. And eventually he had a lot of family problems because of his addiction. His wife and his kids left him and stuff. And we bore the brunt of him being, I know I said it'd be the 9 a.m. meeting. Sorry, I was offline for the day. And I just didn't even respond.
Wow.
In a week, we would have known that you don't come to meetings on time and your work's not done. His portfolio is fantastic and he'd worked for great companies. We just caught him in a moment when drugs were running his life and he wasn't.
Yeah, unfortunately, I've seen that experience and had that experience. I used to, not to relate on that level, and I'm not trying to one up you. You're very centered, you're very in the zone. Talk to me about why that is for you. Do you do a lot of yoga when you have on your lunch break? I don't know. I'm just spitballing here.
It's funny you bring that up. I do have a daily yoga practice.
Do you? I was just guessing.
The name of my company actually comes from that. The early version of this, we had a working title and we had built a simple website. Many of the parts you need to be in a flow state, the music, the distraction blocking, the timer, all that stuff. We built that and had some early members. And I wanted a better name than like Flow State App 12, Distraction Blocker 9. And I was talking to Laura, my wife, when we were going on our honeymoon to Bali, because Laura and I met in yoga, and Bali was a great place for our honeymoon. Let's go be far away from everything and just do some yoga for a week or two. And I said to her, I hope on this honeymoon, my unconscious mind, the universe just speaks to me and bubbles up some cool name for this. Amazon's not really about books. Nike's really not about shoes, but they're powerful, interesting names. And they express a deeper thing about the company. And Laura's, yeah, I wish that for you. We get there. I told her I'd love on the first day, just quickly, let me talk to 3 people who are early members and just ask them what do they love about it. And that'll seed my mind for the next week or 2 weeks to think about it. I talked to 3 people. Third guy, we'd spent 8 or 10 minutes. Thank you so much. Want to know what's your favorite features? You love the music or the smart assistant or the thing, whatever. Steven, you asked the wrong questions. Okay. What's the right question? You should ask me why I pay you. It's not an expensive product. We really make this affordable. Why do you pay me? He said, I find I have 2 kinds of days now. I have 3 o'clocks where I'm playing with my 2 and 4-year-old. And I have 6 o'clocks from where the hell did the day go? And he said, the difference is whether I used your focus app, your flow state app in the morning. I pay you because my kids are not going to be 2 and 4 forever. Wow. Thank you. I did not think to ask that. And told Laura at dinner, he's more articulate about your company than you are. That's powerful and emotional. That is what he wants in his life. We're going to bed. And she said, in yoga, we hear all these Sanskrit terms, these concepts around Lana and life force and dharma and karma. That guy was the universe speaking to you. You wanted the universe to speak to you. He did through that guy. And he described Sukha, that feeling of when you are confident and you're doing something you're good at and you can do it with ease. You're in control of your work, not controlled by. She said, that's what you should call your company, Sukha Company, a happiness company. And I bought the domain that night from bed. So yoga is a huge part of what I do. And I think that the more mindful and intentional you are, the further you're going to get. And that can be a healthy or unhealthy expression. You can be mindful and like, dude, I'm crushing it and I get to play with my kids at night. Or you can be like, hey, I'm super intentional and mindful. And for me, that just means staying up until 2 a.m. and not seeing my family. You decide what the expression looks like. but it all comes from intention.
Give me the name again.
Thesukha.co, TheSukha.co, and it's a flow state app, and it's free for a week.
Would you recommend that to people who may be in or a remote state or remote workers and maybe struggling to stay focused? Because that would be my first assumption.
Yeah, that's what you built it for.
That's so
there
cool.
Are particular challenges in that regard. And there are some things not even related to my company that are helpful working remote. One of them, which I saw firsthand, was you can build a mental association between places and what you do. And I saw this the first time on Independence Day. I had met the writer, producer, director, and we got along really well. We were going to do this movie. And they had a habit of writing their scripts down in Puerto Vallarta. There was a beautiful white villa in the hills. I've never been there. And they would write down there. And I asked Dean about this once. Why is it you and Roland go down there? In the mornings, there's this light that comes in over the pool. It's this white marble villa, and it just inspires us in that room. We don't think about our agents. We don't think about casting. We don't think about our business managers. We just think about movies and film and story and character and stuff. Super cool. When they went to write that, this round, it was rented, and Roland's assistant had to tell him, you can't have it next week. And Roland told his entertainment attorney, buy the place. And by Monday, Roland owned a $5 million villa in Puerto Vallarta. Where those renters went, unclear to me, but they went down there on Monday. They were writing in that room where they had trained themselves to get in the zone. And they came back with what became the third highest grossing script in film history. And that was their thing. And it's not to say you need, $5 million villa to do something great. When I was working with Alex Kurtzman and Bob Orsi, who wrote Mission Impossible 3 and Zorro and The Island and Transformers 1 and 2 and Star Trek 11, like, again, first dollar gross, like, top writers and great guys. They would often, in crunch time, go across the street. We were on the little Amblin compound at DreamWorks, which is part of Universal's lot. They would go across to the Universal Hilton and rent a hotel room there. It's not a glamorous property. It's where you go with your kids the night before you go to Universal Studios. And
right.
That, for them, I think, evoked when they met back in high school, college, and it was a dorm room. It was, for them, it was that feeling of Bob sitting on the edge of the bed with his laptop and Alex at the little desk and them writing away and being, we're going to make it someday. We're going to be great writers. And just brought them to that place of, we got to finish Transformers the next 2 weeks. And it's just an interesting mental trick. Again, it's free. This is, you do not need anybody's app, pay anybody money. This place in my house, this is where I'm going to do this. I come to this room and I do it here, and watch. As you do that, your brain, when you enter it, will start to fall into that mode.
It's crazy that somebody would buy that place for $5 million. And I interpret that story very simply to say, that's how powerful flow state is. That's how powerful those key things are. $5 million. Holy smokes.
Well, Roland also comes from a German family that's sort of the John Deere of Bavaria. His father's a very successful manufacturer of large equipment. I think for Roland, that was not crazy because he had made film money, and I think he also had generational kind of wealth. Regardless, you don't spend $5 million on lunch.
If you do, it better be one heck of a steak. But I would.
Welcome to Texas.
Welcome to Texas. Talk to me about what you want leaders, ICs, via individual contributors to walk away with most.
If you want to move your company forward, if you truly want to have someone in the staff meeting say, I thought of this yesterday, and the entire company goes, whoa, we should do that right now. That does not come from Slacks and emails and Teams messages. That comes from deep work. And Cal Newport has written about this. A bunch of people have written about this. And deep work, if you want to magnify that, help people get into a flow state. Help yourself do it or help your team do it. Whatever you use. You don't have to use my tool. You can use any combination of things that help. But understand that the way the brain works is it needs an hour or two uninterrupted to fall into that magical state where you come back with the chocolate and peanut butter. What if we did that? And then suddenly your company creates Reese's Pieces and you're $1 billion company. That comes from those weird moments of I went deep. See what you can do to create conditions that respect that in your company. That would be my best advice.